Okay, so today I have a special guest for you to meet, and he is a scientist who actually is really important in plate tectonics, although he never uttered those two words, plate tectonics. So it'll take me just a moment, but let me go get him. You'll notice that as he's speaking, you do have a few things to be filling out on your lesson today. Okay, one moment. Let me get Alfred. Oh my goodness. I am very worried about all of you. Why are you dressed the way you're dressed? Where's your winter coat and your fuzzy hat? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, I hope that you're safe. I hope that you remain safe. I suppose I should get to my presentation. My name is Alfred Wegener, and you might be like, Alfred Wegener, it looks like Alfred Wegener. Well, here's the thing. I am not from the United States. Let me show you where I'm from. Oh yeah, by the way, that's me when I was a little bit of a younger man, okay? So let me show you where I'm from. I'm actually from the continent of Europe, and I'm from this country right here on the E of Europe. That country is Germany. So in German, the W is pronounced V. So again, I'm Alfred Wegener, and I am much more modern than that other scientist you met, James Hutton. So I was actually born not in the early 1700s, but the late 1800s. I was born in 1880. And I grew up being the son of an orphanage owner. And so him owning a business made us wealthy. Because we were wealthy, I was able to go to college. And I actually went all the way through and got my PhD. Now, I am not a medical doctor. I'm actually a doctor of astronomy. And you might be thinking, Alfred, we aren't studying space. That's what astronomy means. We're starting to study plate tectonics. Well, I know. I wasn't at first interested in plate tectonics. So I got my PhD in astronomy, but there really weren't a whole lot of job opportunities. So I got interested in a growing field, and now this would have been, I would have been 26. This would have been 1906. This growing field was meteorology. And meteorology is not the study of meteors. It's actually the study of weather. But this was over 100 years ago. So at that time, it would take 24 hours of data research to make a 24-hour forecast. So if you look at the map with me, scientists were starting to understand in the early 1900s that what happened in Europe was greatly, in terms of weather, was greatly influenced by what was happening near the poles. So I actually spent 6 years in Greenland. Now maybe you've heard this, Greenland is not green. Greenland is actually a very cold climate, and it's covered mostly in ice. And so I was there to study polar circulation with a team of researchers and learning how to predict the weather. Well, in 1912, I did not get fired. It was just that job opportunity ran out of funding. So I came back to Germany, and I actually got a job as a tutor, which is basically like an assistant professor at the University of Marburg. And Marburg is a big city in Germany, not as big as Berlin, but a big city. And so while I was a tutor there, I liked to spend a lot of time in the library reading. And what I enjoyed reading the most were scientific research articles. And so I found one, and here's actually what it said. And I have a picture really that summarizes what it said. Maybe you've seen this map before. This article was saying that there were multiple cases where there would be the same fossil, but on different continents. The same creature. And it wasn't just animals. You notice that this fern was actually, the fossils were found across multiple land masses. And that made me wonder, especially with the animals, how the heck did they get across the ocean and die on the other side? Now, the author of the research paper said this: I think there were land bridges, tiny skinny pieces of land connecting the oceans, and that these creatures walked all the way across the ocean to die on the other side. Now, to me, that seemed very far-fetched. The other thing I started to notice, and maybe you have too, do you notice how South America and Africa, how they look like they actually fit together? And that's true for other continents too. But then something happened in my life, and I really didn't get to pursue this research much further at the time. In 1914, I was drafted into the German army. Now, 1914, think about this. Would that have been World War I or World War II? You should be thinking World War II, right? So World War I happened in the late 1930s. So anyway, drafted means I did not want to go. Drafted meant I had to go. And so I was put into a few weeks of basic training. I was thrown in the front lines in heavy combat fighting, and I do not want you to laugh. I got shot in the rear end. It hurt. I did not die. What ended up happening is I got treated, and at that point they realized that this guy, Alfred Wegener, might be more valuable to us as a meteorologist. Now, if you think about it, that does make sense. When to attack is really important that we understand the weather. So I ended up basically working as a meteorologist for the German army. So during this time, I had some downtime. I would work a day's shift and I'd have a little downtime. So I kept researching and I kept reading more about this, and I thought, I don't agree with these land bridges. I thought, it is time. I'm going to publish a paper, and by then it was 1915, and by paper I mean a research article about where the continents used to be. Okay, and so I want to share with you now, and this is where you're going to need to record some things, the name of my theory. I said my theory was Continental Drift. And so here's what that means. It means that there was once a supercontinent that split. Okay, so you can pause me if you need to get that typed in or written in there. So my theory again is continental drift, and there was my thinking. I think the continents were all together and that it split, and I even in the paper in 1915, I gave my supercontinent a name. I called it Pangea. Now in Greek, it means all lands. Pan, all, Gea, land. So isn't that a good name for it? All the lands once together. Now, I had evidence to support my claim. Let me share with you my pieces of evidence. The first one is something that you guys know about. Same fossils on different continents. Hey, this makes sense to have different fossils on different continents. That would stand to reason. But the same fossils on different continents begs the question, how did they get there and die on the other side? Unless when they died and they were fossilized, the continents were all together. Now, this I have not mentioned yet. I also read in my research that they had found glacial grooves in weird places. What I mean by that is erosion marks by glaciers called glacial grooves. They matched across continents. That's weird, unless the continents were together when the glaciers came down. And then something we've discussed, the way the continents just look like a perfect fit. So when I published my paper, I was telling the world, look, there was once a supercontinent called Pangea that split, and here's how I know. Now, do you think the world, the scientific community said, Alfred Wegener, you're so smart? They did not. But they did not go the other way. They did not say, Alfred, this is just craziness. They saw my evidence. But here was my big problem. They asked me a question. They asked me how. They asked me, how did the continents split? If they were really together, what is the force that moved them? Now, I'll tell you today, I had no idea. And I got nervous, and I made something up. I said the oceanic crust just kind of bulldozed the continental crust away, and I truly became a laughingstock in my community. I could no longer get a job at universities nearby. I had to go back to Greenland for research, which you know is very isolated from society. And so this is why I've been so worried about you not wearing your winter coat. Now, I'm the shorter man here. Folks, this is the last picture of me taken. In 1930, I had just turned 50 years old. I went on a mission in Greenland, and a terrible, terrible blizzard came upon me, and I froze to death in Greenland. So I beg you to always wear your winter coat and your hat when you go out, to be very careful. The other thing I want to say is I wish you great luck on your plate tectonics adventures. Now, I didn't say plate tectonics, and I didn't know how they split, but I was right. Science has now confirmed that since I died, that I was ahead of my time, that it is true that the continents used to be together and split. Soon, I hear, you're going to be finding out the answer to the question I couldn't answer, and that is how. Alfred Wegener, signing off.